Rainbow of Death. Hello, everybody. We are live on the Facebook, and this will be, of course, in the Poker News podcast next week. I am with the one and only. Oh gosh, am I going to mess it up? I said Chase Bianchi.
Yeah, you got it.
Oh, good. Thank you, Jesus. Okay, good. Well, I nailed that, and we have been getting so much. I mean, just spam in the DM all over Facebook. In the last coming months, or the most recent few months, I feel like there's been a lot of scandal and a lot of talk about people getting their monies stolen and being bamboozled in the unregulated markets and also in some just games going on in the U.S. And I've been trying to get a hold of you, but I know that you were busy making all that money in the PCA. So before we are going to get into the scandals, the unregulated markets, all of this business. I want to get the inside scoop. Before we get into that, Chase, tell me about your PCA dream. What went down at the PCA?
Well, I wish I was making all the money. I pretty much ended up breaking even, but I'll take it. It was like a free vacation. But yeah, I fired 2 bullets at the main event, the 10K main. Second bullet went deep, got 33rd. Kind of felt like a punt at the end, honestly. It was like build it up like the dream run the whole time. And then it was like literally within 15 minutes, I was busting out of it. But, you know, you can't argue with the 33rd place finish. Got 33,000 for it. So it's all good, you know?
Yeah, but it's so funny because actually, so I've been going back through and listening to all these old podcasts from Poker News, and Christy Arnett was doing an interview that I was listening to yesterday with Daryl Fish, and they were talking about how sometimes the bust in like the 20 to like 30 or like the 15 to 30 range is like even more painful, not just in like a fiduciary sense, but in like an emotional sense than like a 15 or a 10 or whatever, that there's some sort of like relief when you get up there. But when you put all that effort and energy and then it's kind of like not even really a payday and like you're so close.
Yeah, it's the thing. Like 33,000 sounds like a lot, but it's like that's 3 buy-ins, you know?
Yeah.
It's not much. And I put 2 buy-ins in, you know? All that said, I pretty much broke even on the trip. Yeah, got a vacation. I brought my wife for a week. It was a really fun trip, so I'm not complaining.
That's the best. And so obviously like all the buzz was the PSPC, and you know, we've given hella kudos to that event on this show, basically just because like it clearly saved the PCA. Did you, like, I didn't go this year, but so from you actually being there, did it feel like the PCA was alive again?
Yeah, so the way that I would describe it was it almost felt like the World Series of Poker main event. That's the kind of hype and like energy that was around. So I really hope that they do it annually. Annually might be a stretch, but maybe like every couple years, semi-annually or something. I really hope they come back with it. I filled out a survey on it like this morning. They sent out surveys to everyone.
That's literally exactly what me and my co-host were just talking about. We were like, well, it's obviously not sustainable every year, but like it's clearly something that brings such buzz and hype and so many new people, I think, to the game, which is, at least from a media standpoint, it's just so wonderful. And obviously from a poker player's standpoint, it's also wonderful.
Yeah, it was a sick event.
So talk to us a little bit. I mean, we've had you on before, like ages ago when we were doing the stream team, and it's been a long time. Since then, you've re-established yourself on the East Coast. You've won a bracelet also since then, which we did talk about on video. But catch us up a little bit on what brought you to the East Coast from the glorious Rocky Mountains.
Oh, I miss Colorado. It's like God's country out there. So beautiful. But, yeah, we moved out to Maryland to pursue the poker games. The poker games are real good out here. My wife was gracious enough to leave her family and friends and follow me across the country. So we've been out here for, gosh, it's been almost 4 years now. It's crazy to think it's been that long. And yeah, the games have been excellent out here. It's been a lot of fun. I've had more success than I really could have dreamed. So it's been awesome. And the cash grind is really what I've been all about. Tournaments here and there, but the cash games, the cash games are great here.
Wow. Okay. So, and I want to say like 6 months ago, we had a podcast, 2 husband and wife podcast, His and Her Poker, who they're East Coast grinders. I think they live in New Jersey, but they go every weekend, you know, to the Borgata or to the Foxwoods or whatever and play 2-5. And even having them on the show and talking about, I think especially because so much of poker is based in Las Vegas, I've had tons of conversations about the difference between, say, California, Los Angeles, San Diego poker and Vegas poker. But I think there's a lot less conversations going on about East Coast, like what that East Coast cash game grind is versus, say, Vegas or LA. Tell me like a little bit about what the vibe is. Like you're able to get games going every day, all the time. Like what stakes are people playing?
Yeah, so I think the reason I moved here was that Maryland was mostly when the casinos opened. Casinos opened around here like 6, 7 years ago, I think, somewhere around there. And so it was like a relatively like almost untapped market. Which similarly, I'm going to be moving to Boston over the summer when the Wynn is opening, or I guess it's going to be called the Encore. They're opening a casino like downtown Boston, and there's no casino within like an hour and a half drive. So I think similarly, like they always used to say like poker players are the last like American cowboys sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like sometimes
you guys are like
gotta just,
homesteading
get on
out
the
there.
road. Yeah, you got to get on the road. This town's dried up. We got to go to find the next gold rush. So I think there's a lot to be said for being in the right place and finding some good games. And out here, there's some good games and pretty high stakes.
I was gonna say too, it's also like not to be too stereotypical, but like the East Coast has a lot of money. There's a lot of money over there. Even when you look at like the most expensive zip codes in the country, I'm shocked. It's like Philadelphia, like it's Vermont, all the New Jersey. I was like, what is going on? Like whatever, all the political people or something, they have all the money over there.
That's why LA is always going to be one of the best poker markets because it's the most affluent part of the country. Similarly, there's pockets on the East Coast, like Boston, I think that's part of the recipe of having a really good poker economy is you have to have that influx of disposable income.
Oh, man, so, I need to get that. I need to get that disposable income going too. Let's get it. Ship it to mama. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit. So when you were on the stream team, you were, I mean, obviously in the US, we have like a very, very small amount of places where we can play and know that we're, protected or whatever. And then those markets are so small that really it's like, is it valuable or worth it? I've talked, ad nauseum to like the Jamie Kurtzetters and Scott Blumsteins and people who were trying to make a life for themselves in New Jersey to just play on, stars and do the what is the one where like you play really fast? It's not Zoom. Rush Poker? Is that what it was? I can't remember.
Yeah, the like Zoom formats, sure.
Yeah, Zoom. Okay, but yeah, and trying to figure out how to find edges in that. But yeah, basically I want to talk first of all about what your experiences have been playing, streaming, on these different sites. And then I'm assuming then that you're not streaming as much now, that you're like shifting more to this live grind and kind of like your thought process behind that. And then after that, we're going to get deep into the like juicy gossip.
Sure. It's tough because like you said, they're unregulated markets for the most part. Even a bigger American facing site like ACR, America's Card Room, like it's still an unregulated market. And even when I was like part of the stream team briefly, it just didn't work out because you're a big company and PokerNews kind of doesn't want that exposure to these unregulated markets. So the stream team thing didn't really work out, and understandably. So when American players have to make these hard choices of where am I going to play, and you have these unregulated markets, and even a more reputable one like ACR, even though that's come into question a lot over the last couple of years, they might be the most reputable of these unregulated sites, but what does that really mean? And then you get in farther down the ladder and you have like people literally running poker rooms out of like their offices, and it's scary because you're depending on some guys that are not regulated to pay out players to make sure the games are good. And a lot of them, like especially these really small ones, they don't have any infrastructure or way to secure games, make sure there's not cheating, collusion, so it's really high risk, but at the same time, it's one of those things. It's high risk, but it's high reward because very few people are going to play on these sites like the seasoned players. So I don't know. I mean, I think people just need to make informed decisions and accept the risk that they're taking. At the same time, as a community, hopefully we can point out where are the unsavory places to play, where people are very likely to get scammed and ripped off.
So,
And
what are some of the ways, for example, even that you are like trying to, or that you were at least trying to keep yourself safe? Just for people who maybe, especially for a lot of us who it's like maybe you're going to have $1,000 or $500 or whatever it is. Like, do you have like a maximum amount that you're ever going to leave on a
mm,
site? Do you like for noobs? Like, what do we do?
that's a great question. I always tell people keep the minimum you can. You need like your working bankroll. So if you're playing high stakes tournaments and you're going to put in 3K in buy-ins in a day, then yeah, maybe you have a couple days of buy-ins. You have like 6,000 on your account. If you're playing $10 tournaments and you're going to buy in $100 over the course of a day, then like you don't need to have more than $1,000 in your account. And really, you shouldn't expose yourself to that risk. So part of it is on you to be wise in how much you keep on the site, and just don't keep more than you have to. But at the same time, what we'll get into and what has happened is on some of these unregulated sites, the games are so soft that someone deposits $500, they've run it up to 40,000, and they're not even able to cash it out. You know, they're like slow paying them. So at the same time, you can be as wise as you can, but a lot of it's out of your control.
Yeah, of course. So let's talk a little bit then about this. I want to say it was right before the PCA that really
Mm.
people started going. We started getting a lot of messages about this New York Poker King, and clearly there was a lot of people actually involved in what went down. So for those who are like just coming in, just kind of like bring us in, give us the whole story, what went down.
Okay. So New York Poker King, and there's a number of different guys. He's like one of the big Instagram poker influencers, if you will. And they run a like free money site. So it's like back in the day, I used to hit my buddy up and I'll be like, hey, let's start up a play money game on PokerStars. And then we'll just pay each other back on the side. Well, they're essentially doing that with an app called PPP Poker, which is like free money site, but they charge the operators like if you need 1,000 chips to give the guy $1,000 that he paid you, they'll charge a little service charge for giving you the play money chips. So the site's getting a little bit of juice, and then they're essentially running this online poker room where they're acting as a payment processor, they're organizing games, they're I mean, you would hope that they're doing some kind of cheat detection, but at the same time, they're running it on this free app where they have no back end access. So they're not able to provide the level of care that say like a PokerStars. They have a huge security team, so they're really just a fly by night running this out of their basement sort of thing. And so I brought this up. I actually brought this up about a year and a half ago when I saw him. He was the only one I was aware of that was starting one of these, and I saw him operating, and I'm like, man, he's really going hard at this, trying to build this, and there's no regulation. There's no safeguards. He could easily run with the money, or someone that's working there can just take player funds and everyone's out of luck. So I shot out a couple Instagram posts and I'm like, you guys need to be careful because you just need to be aware of the risks. And I left it at that. He was firing shots at me and I'm like, listen, I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying there's a ton of risk in this when these are just fly-by-night operations. And sure enough, here we are a year and a half later, and, well, after I posted that, now multiple guys have reached out to me, and they're like, okay, it's happening. He's not paying. And I'm not saying Adnan is necessarily responsible, Adnan, NYPK, but he's the face of the company, and they're not paying. And he says, he like guarantees that people will get paid out, and all of a sudden, two guys messaged me. One guy owed 40,000, one guy owed 20,000, and I gave him a lot of time. I contacted Anon personally. This is not the first time that someone's reached out to me, actually. Previously, people had eventually gotten paid, and I reached out to him like, hey, man, can we do something about this? Gave him about 3 weeks before I finally broke the news. I was like, I need to let the public know that it looks like this place is insolvent, or it appears to be. And that's kind of where we stand. He's claimed that he's going to pay them back. He's paid them like, I think around $1,000 each. He's claiming that he's going to pay it back. And I hope he does. I sincerely hope he does, because these are good guys. One of them just had his second child and like needs the money. And it's really sad to see.
Oh my gosh, it's the worst. And I mean, that's what the most unfortunate thing. I was just at dinner with this poker playing girl last night, and she was like, how long do you think it's going to be before, it's all going to be like regulated and legit in the US again? And I'm like, unfortunately, the way that things work in the federal government, particularly, I think that it's going to be a really long time. And so in the meantime, it's like, what are really like coming in to try to save us has done nothing but like ruin people who like this is actually their money. And then it's like, at what kind of recourse does anyone really have in this situation except for to just say like, don't put your money on this site moving forward?
That's a sad thing, is that they're unregulated, and there's a reason that they're unregulated. There's not any recourse. They're not under any authority. They of course are like, Adnan is a U.S. citizen. I put some of the victims in contact with Verstandig law firm, which they're very gambling. They specialize in gambling law.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they might have a civil case, but certainly you can't call the cops and say, this guy scammed me out of some money.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, it's really hard to enforce, which is why the risk is so high.
And it's crazy because as the poker community, like we've already all been through this exact thing, right? Like who's in charge of the funds? Like how do we keep the funds safe? And really, if we're talking like 1K out of 40K, that's a very significant, I mean, even a part of me can kind of understand if it's like, I can only get you like 40% right now. But it's like, okay,
Sure.
So then where did the funds go? Especially if you're able to operate in a way that's pretty small time, right?
Right. And, I really hope that there's a good outcome, but all signs point to it not being. Adnan then, after I exposed this, all of a sudden came up with this story about he suspected them of collusion and cheating and all this other stuff that was totally unfounded. And then not only that, I've had other people message me, and I don't know if these people are telling the truth, but according to people that claim to be owed money, it's well over $100,000 that people are out through his poker room.
Wow.
So yeah, it's pretty wild. And to him say that he's going to pay them all back, and we've seen a couple $1,000s. So I personally talked to the two guys that are owed the big amounts, the 20 and 40,000. They said that they are meeting him in Atlantic City this weekend, and he has promised to pay them a large amount. Let's hope that's the case. But
even that sounds so sketchy. Like, okay, really, like Gotti, I'm sorry. Can you just like wire transfer it to me, please? That'd be great. Yeah, I don't want to like have an accident befall me when I go to Atlantic City.
Totally, yeah. Oh, let's get them all together in the same place at one time.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's just so. It's just so scary. It's really so scary. And I think it's difficult too for sort of the poker community and the poker media to even know where to begin or how to expose this kind of thing. I think so many people want to, there's so many anonymous figures, involved. And it's interesting, like this gentleman who's kind of the face, to even have a face in a situation like that, I think is like super risky. Well, so then sort of in the coming weeks since then, we've gotten a couple of messages. Let me get in this thing. I want you guys to talk to some people about PPP poker. It's a big scam. The players are need to understand that the club owners have multi accounts. They empty the pockets of regular players. They're not paying winnings, like borrowed chips, blah, blah. And I've never even heard of this PP poker or whatever it is.
PPP poker, that's the like app that they're using. That's pretty much the interface that they're using to run these on. So Adnan is like an operator on PPP poker. And as well, there's other clubs too. Adnan is the one I was familiar with because he's also an Instagram guy.
Yeah.
And so he's the one that was on my radar, but there's other ones, like there's one called Cadillac Club that apparently recently exit scammed as well for around $100,000, it sounds like. Again, these are rumors, and I can't confirm any of this, but I don't know why people would lie about getting scammed out of all this money.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. It sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So PPP is sort of the like the face or the like the interface that you're using.
It's the interface that they use, yeah.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Wow. And then it's also like, at what point, like, they really don't have any responsibility then, right? I mean, from like
No,
they're
they're
just
not. They
a
don't guarantee
platform.
anything. They're like, we're a free play platform. We sell you play money chips. They
Right.
really have no interest in game security. The only interest is that they want people to keep using their platform, but they certainly don't guarantee anything. They don't do any of the finance. They don't do any of the operations. They literally just like host servers and put the site on it.
Wow. That's so interesting. Yeah, Amelia, welcome to the chat. We are talking about, is the room that New York Poker King runs, does it have like a name in and of itself?
I don't think it does. I think it's just NYPK Poker Club.
Poker something. So,
Yeah.
Emilio, we're talking about lots of unregulated sites and that are existing on this PPP platform, but that people are not getting paid, not getting their money back. And we're talking about some pretty serious amounts of money. And so I guess, is this then to come like to the very, you living in Maryland and like focusing on this live cash game grind, is it really looking like at this point, probably the best and most effective way to keep your money is to just play live?
Yeah, live tournaments, live poker is probably the safest way because there are those safeguards. You have big gaming bodies and authorities that regulate these things. That said, there's not a casino, and there are a lot of casinos around. Actually, they build a casino every week, it seems.
Yeah.
But some people don't have access to it, and even if you have a casino, that's not to say that they're going to have anything bigger than a 1-2 no limit.
Right.
So yeah, it's not like back in the day where you can fire it up and find any game you want. If online poker is your only option, unfortunately, the United States has taken a stance against it, and that means we have limited options, and some of these scary fly-by-night operations have popped up. They're opportunistic. They want to make some money, and they might not be worthy of your business. That's up to you.
So earlier in the chat, we had someone who was asking. So I am in Texas, in fact, and earlier in the chat, we had someone asking about if it's ever going to be legit to play online in Texas. And right now, it's not. And actually, I think it's another interesting sort of in between scenario that we find ourselves in Texas, where there are no casinos.
Yeah.
We have to go to Oklahoma, which isn't. I mean, it's not the farthest away, but so all of these clubs have started opening up in the last couple of years, which they run them sort of like gyms or like country clubs where you pay a certain amount per month and then like you pay like an hourly basically to be there and play, but they don't take any rake. And so this is like some way that they circumvent the whatever the rules are. I guess the rake is the actual law that is broken if you have a poker room, but it's also a little bit sketchy, I think, because anything that's just thinly under the law or the radar is always just one step away from, being illegit. And even we had a relationship with Global Poker for a long time at PokerNews, who was using like a sweepstakes-based model instead of like a straight cash something, which I also didn't really understand fully, but now we've since had to sort of
bizarre.
like, yes, like there's all these weird little niches and ways to try to get around it. And the reality is that people love poker and want to play poker. And it's like, can't we just be like free citizens who want to play poker? And
it's sad. It's sad that like you have a big company like Global Poker and they're like, well, we're not playing with US dollars. We're playing with US doll hairs.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't know how you think. Apparently it works, but it's so bizarre. But people want to play poker and, they're offering it. It's kind of up to us to figure out whether it's trustworthy. And it's sad that that's on us, but the consumers have to be careful.
Well, and it's also interesting that as a poker community, and I give you huge thanks, and also to everyone that's Joey Ingram and to all of the poker playing community that has a voice and uses it and speaks up to not only try to get people the money that they're owed and they deserve, but also to try to save other people in the poker community from falling into the same boat. And I understand it doesn't surprise me that then they're like firing shots at you and coming at you. And, it's definitely, I mean, I have a lot of respect for it. And I think as a poker community, it's key for us to not only continue to fight for liberty to be able to play poker if we want to, but also to fight for each other to try to make sure that we can at least police ourselves if that's what we're forced to do.
Yeah, shout out to Joey. I got to meet Joey at PCA. That was probably one of my highlights. Joey and his sidekick Jonah. But Joey posted a really good YouTube video on the unregulated sites, like things to look for, things to be careful of, and it was really pretty comprehensive. And so I would recommend if you're thinking about doing this unregulated poker thing, go check that out because he has some words of wisdom for you.
Wow. Okay, we will, and I will be sure to put a link to that then. If you guys are listening to the podcast in podcast form, we'll put a link to that in the article if you want to watch. And wow, I really appreciate you coming on. It's like just such crazy stuff I feel like that we're like dealing with and living with in this life. So what's next for you? What's your next live event besides playing cash all over the world?
Ooh, I was talking to a buddy, and like I really got the cash grind on my mind lately. So I do want to play probably more cash coming up. I am going to Borgata for the Winter Poker Open. I can't miss it. It's like 2 hour drive. I'm like, I got to go play that. So I'm going on Monday for that. And then really I just want to play a lot of cash and enjoy the grind. And I feel, you kind of go through cycles in poker. And I just kind of came out of the downswing feeling very down. And I'm just like super jacked up to play more poker. So I'm looking forward to it.
I love it. And I saw on your Twitter before we started today that you like had just had a lunch with someone who was like college age, which I have a stepdaughter who's 21, and I'm like, oh, it's can be either really depressing or really inspiring sometimes. Are you like mentoring people, or like what else are you doing with your life besides poker?
Yeah, that's really cool. About a year and a half ago, our church has a mentorship program. It's called Squads, and they pair up, guys and girls separate, but they'll pair up a man with a student. And I got paired with David. He was a senior at the time, and just a mentorship. I want David to be successful in life. I want him to know Jesus better and to love people better. So it's really cool. And I was reflecting the other day. We had a really good talk, and I was like, man. And then I came home and I was talking to my wife. I'm like, gosh, the advice I gave David, I think I need to turn on myself. So it's really cool. David teaches me a lot about how I can be a better man too. I really have had a great community out here in Maryland. Lots of friends and church friends and poker friends, and I've really I've been super blessed since I moved out here. So life is good. Life is good.
I love that idea. I love that because I think too, like fellowship is such a, it can be such a vague concept, right? But to really try to nurture actual, relationships where you have a responsibility to each other and that you can maintain it in like a more intimate way. I think I think quite often when I experience fellowship, it's in like a group setting, like, okay, we're doing the potluck in between services or whatever it is, but to have, I would really love that. I like to have a mentor and also to be a mentor, I think is
totally
such a
They're
cool opportunity.
So beneficial. I never knew it until we moved out here and we really made an effort to be in community more. And me and my wife, we've had marriage mentors, which are an older couple that kind of mentored us in marriage and how to be closer to one another.
Yes.
And then we've stepped into mentorship roles with some students. And man, that intergenerational like mentoring and growing and iron sharpens iron, and so one man sharpens another, or one woman can sharpen another. It's been really cool to see. I've experienced like community with God's people and non-believers alike, and how just how valuable it is. I never knew until I really gave it a go. But I would encourage you guys, find some community,
I definitely want to talk to our pastor about like maybe trying to integrate something like that. And even within the poker community, I could see how, people are always talking about how, like having friends in poker is so good for them or it's the only way, but to have like a real, to make like a club or something where you could connect like an older poker player with a younger one and just see like where that relationship would go. I feel like it would be super good for everyone. This is like, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to like start this all over the place. Well, I appreciate it so much. It's always great to talk to you. And I hope I'll see you probably at the WSOP.
Yes, I'll be there for the main event for sure.
You
Yeah.
gotta get a few more bracelets. Just like,
I'm gonna try.
gotta be one of those once you get one, then you just gotta like, now you gotta get another
Yeah,
goal.
anyone can get one. I gotta get two.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you guys also for listening and joining us in the chat. We will catch you guys on the flip. And be sure to stay tuned. I'm going to have on Mark Chirp Herm on Wednesday afternoon. So just stay tuned to Facebook and I'll let you guys know when that is going on. Chase.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. It was really fun.